Hello everyone. This session's topic would be the continuation of introduction to SAP, and the first one we're going to talk about is the projects. Project can be defined as a set of activities carried out to achieve a specific objective, usually for a specific client within a specific period of time using a specified set of resources. Now, once this objective is achieved, the activities are repeated to achieve the objective again. So it is repetitive in nature. So that type of the set of activities is what we normally call as a project. In the SAP or ERP products, we have four types of projects: implementation, rollout, upgrade, and support. Implementation project is a type of project in which the application is installed for the first time in any location of the company. So if the client has 15 locations and you're installing the application either in 1, 2, 3, or all the 15 locations for the very first time, and that's what we call as an implementation project. Now, because for the ERP products, the SAP product, the client process has to be mapped into the application. This data required for mapping the client business activities is gathered from scratch. That is from zero for all the components the client wants to activate. Since the consulting company, the implementation company, will not have any information about the client process, we need to gather all the data for all the components they want to activate. So these types of projects are also called as greenfield projects. Okay. The next one is rollout. Rollout is where once the application is installed for the first time in the application, the next time onwards, wherever the application is installed in the other locations of the same company, that's what we call as a rollout project. Because it is not the first time installation of the application in those companies, the project name is changed from implementation to rollout. Now, even for a rollout for the new locations where the application will be installed, the business process mapping has to be carried out. This product has to be customized. So the data required for this type of customization will be gathered in two ways. First, it will be copied from the locations where the product is already installed. Since the rollout will normally happen within the same company, the locations under the same company. And second, the new locations specific data will be gathered combined with the existing data from the locations where it is already being used, and then the customization will take place for the new locations. Okay, so as you can understand, rollout projects are carried out only for ERP products, and they can only be carried out within the same company. The third type of project is the upgrade, where the existing version may not be sufficient to meet the changing business requirements. So if the product has a new version or a higher version, then the installation of that new or higher version, replacing the existing version completely in all the locations of the company, is what we call as the upgrade project. So in this, the existing version will be completely removed from all the locations, and the new version or the higher version will be installed. The data required for configuring the application or mapping the business process into the system will be taken in two ways. Again, the data will be taken from the existing version combined with the data required for the new version, and then the configuration will be completed. Now, since the mapping has to be done, checking what is the existing data and what is the new data required, upgrade projects were more complex and time consuming than a simple implementation or a rollout. Okay. So right now, we don't have any upgrade projects because the version that we are using has been in existence since 2006, and there's no new version released for the application. The last one is the support project, which is for providing assistance to the client for proper use of the application. So after implementation or rollout or an upgrade project, all the functional, technical, and administration assistance which is given to the client for proper use of the application is what we call as a support project. Now, since the assistance is given only for the proper use of the SAP application, these projects are called as AMS, that is Application Maintenance and Support. Okay, so these are the four types of projects. The activities which can be performed by a consultant within these roles are of four types based on the divisions of the product. So we have functional role, which is played by those consultants working on any of the components in the functional division. Technical role will be played by those consultants working on any of the technical components. Administration role will be played by the basis and database administrators. Techno-functional is a combination of technical and functional roles. That means a consultant working on any of the technical components, if they learn a functional component to do a better job, then they can play both the roles of the functional as well as technical work. So that's what techno-functional role is all about. Now, another important thing to remember is SAP by itself will not be able to carry out the projects for the over 50 lakh companies where the application is in use, and there are new companies which are trying to install SAP. So what SAP has done is, like with every major or very big companies, they have companies which are authorized by them to carry out projects on their behalf. These companies are what we call as the implementation partners. Most of the consultants working throughout the world as SAP consultants, they work for one of the implementation partners. And there are lots of IT companies which are authorized or which are called as the implementation partners for SAP. Now, these companies can carry out any type of project for any client, even sometimes competing with SAP to get the project. So that's how the implementation partnerships work. So these are about the projects and the implementation partners and roles. Next one that we're going to talk about is architecture. Architecture, in simple terms, is a method used by the system designers for dividing the different parts of a software product so that it can be easy for the software product to interpret and execute the commands or transactions entered by the user of that application. So whenever you're using any application, there are certain commands which are entered by the users which the application has to understand, interpret, and execute. So the application working, the method which is used, or the processes which are used by the application to do this type of activity is divided into three different layers. So we have database layer, application layer, and transaction or presentation layer. The database layer is the level of the application where all the source code and the permanent data are maintained. It is another term for a database. So since there can be more than one database for any application, each of these database layers will be identified by a 3-character alphanumeric code called system ID, or in simple terms, we call it as SID. The application layer is the level of the application which will actually interpret and execute the commands entered by the application user. Now, how does the application layer do this interpretation is, the application layer has a built-in layer called the programming layer, which will contain the details of the different programs, functions, or the programming code, which is used for executing the commands entered by the user. And they are defined in the order in which they have to be executed so that the transaction can be completed. So this layer for the SAP product is called as an ABAP layer. The application layer is identified by a 2-character alphanumeric code called instance number. And usually for a specific software product used in a company for multiple locations, the instance number will be constant, since whoever is using that application, the system, that application has to interpret the command in exactly the same way. So for example, whenever you're using SAP from any location within your company, whatever be the type of command anybody enters, it has to be executed in the same way. So that execution is made possible with the use of this application layer. Application layer will get the details of the programs or the procedures or the functions to be executed from this programming layer. Once it gets these details, it will get the actual programming code from the database layer, execute it in the application layer. Okay, and the result of that execution is what will be displayed in the transactional presentation layer. So the transactional presentation layer is nothing but your whatever you see on your screen is what we call as the transactional presentation layer of that application. So this layer is also called as the front end or user interface. Based on how these three layers are built into the application when it is designed, the architecture divides these software products into three different types. So you have applications developed on the one-tier architecture, two-tier architecture, and three-tier architecture. Let me show you a diagram which will better help you understand this. So this is how the three types of architecture will look like. In the one-tier architecture, all the three layers are present within the same physical computer system. These programs developed in the one-tier architecture are also called as single-user systems or single-user applications. Two-tier architecture is where the database and application layer will be present in one system, and the transactional presentation layer can be installed in another physical system. So the computer system which has the database and application layers are called as the server, and the computer system which has the transactional presentation layer is called as the client. Now this is more commonly called as the client-server technology, where you connect to a central server from your system and make use of the application in the other system. So usually we see this type of a setup in companies where you have the local area network, that is a cable connected to the central server to make use of the application in that server. The three-tier architecture is the latest type of architecture where, given the requirement of remote access for multiple users for multiple applications, the industry has developed this type of an architecture so that all the three layers can be existing in different physical computer systems for the same application. So for example, the meetings that you carry out with your parent company, those are what we call as carried out in three-tier architecture. That application was developed in three-tier architecture. Anytime that you work from your home and connect to your office server to make use of any application, then you can say that the application was installed in three-tier architecture. Not installed, rather executed in the application. So the database layer is the office server. The application layer initially will be the service provider's physical server, and the transactional presentation layer will be your personal system or your mobile. So whenever you connect to any server remotely through a service provider's system, that's what we call as the three-tier architecture, or any application which the user uses connecting remotely to that application server, to that server, the computer system, is what we call as the program developed in the three-tier architecture. Most of the applications, in fact, all the applications getting developed these days are getting developed in three-tier architecture to enable connectivity from anywhere in the world. As long as the user has a service provider connection, has service, that is network service, you can connect and use any application from anywhere in the world. Okay. The SAP application is also developed in the three-tier architecture to enable connectivity to it from anywhere. All right. So this is a little bit introduction to architecture. Architecture by itself is a very vast subject, and there are separate courses on architecture. So for you to understand how the SAP application will work when you're connecting to it remotely is what was my intention for explaining architecture, right? So the next topic that we're going to talk about is system landscape. System landscape deals with the number of servers used in a software project, their physical location, and their users. In any type of a software project, we usually have three different types of servers: development server, testing server, which can also be called as a quality assurance server, and production or live server. Now, the development server is the physical computer system which will be used for all development, configuration, customization activities. Okay, so when the consultants they start to configure or customize the application as per the client requirement, they're going to work on the development server. Once the application is customized, that application will be sent to the testing server for proper quality check to ensure the customization which was done, the programming changes which were done were as per the requirement and they are not affecting any other transactions adversely. Yes, they will change some of, they will definitely affect some of the other transactions in a positive way, in the required way. Other than that, the testing server is used only for ensuring that it is not adversely affecting any other transactions. Once the application is tested in the testing server, then it will be put onto the production server where the users of that application will be connecting to the production server to make use of that application. So in your company, whenever you're executing transactions or carrying out any of the business activities, you're actually connecting to the production server. As a user, you will not have access to development or testing server because basically these are meant for customization activities, right? So the development server will have only the configuration screens to ensure that the consultants can carry out all the customization activity. Testing server will have a combination of configuration and end user screens, that is the transaction screens, to enable testing of the application. The production server usually has only the end user or the transaction screen so that the users of that application can carry out all the required business activities. All right. Now the applications which are developed by SAP, they usually come in two different variations or what we call as flavors. One is the IDES system, another one is the non-IDES system. IDES stands for International Demonstration and Evaluation System. This system, this type of the application can be best understood by taking an example. Whenever you visit any vehicle showroom and you want to test how the vehicle feels and drives, you want to take it out for a test drive. So the outlet needs to have a vehicle kept aside for that type of trial run, right? Similarly, when the consulting company visits a client for discussing about installing SAP, if the client requires to have a demonstration, then I need to have a system readily available, the application readily available for giving the demonstration, right? So the IDES is basically designed by SAP with predefined example data, which can be used for giving a demonstration. Since this type of the application comes with predefined example data, usually the IDES system is also used for providing training to internal and external customers or employees. The non-IDES is the type of application which does not contain any type of predefined example data. And this is the type of application used for carrying out the projects, whether implementation or rollout, right? Now, whether it is the IDES system or the non-IDES system, each physical server will be divided into multiple partitions called clients, just like the partitions we carry out in our regular computer systems like C drive, D drive, and E drive, right? These partitions are required to enable the application to be used separately during configuration and testing activities. For the production server, usually the entire application will be installed in only one client. That's the reason why you will not be aware, the users will not be aware of this types of division. Okay. So this is a little bit about the system landscape, introduction to the system landscape, which was primarily was to make you understand that we have three types of servers. The next one in the introduction part is about understanding the different types of data which is used in the application, the SAP application for carrying out various business transactions and activities. So all the data that you use in the application can be divided into three types. So the configuration data, master data, and transaction data. Configuration data can be defined as a set of data which is created once and is normally never changed, right? So it is created and it is created and maintained only by the consultants. The end users, that is the users of the application, will not require any access to create or change this data. Examples of configuration data would be like your company name, address, communication details, logo, and any other data which has to be created only once. And in any type of document or report that you're going to create, this data will be automatically added to that report, right? The second one is the master data, which can be defined as a set of data which remains constant for a long time in the database. Now, this is also the type of data that you're going to require every time that you carry out transactions. But this type of data does not change from day to day or report to report. Whatever data is already maintained in the system, you're going to reuse it every time that you carry out the transactions. The set of data, the actual information is not going to change every time you use it. So we're talking data like the material data, vendor information, customer information, pricing information. Now from document to document, the type of material used, vendor used, customer used is going to change. But when you enter a material number or a part number, the information does not change. Usually it remains the same for a very long time. Yes, it can be changed, but it is not on a regular basis, right? Now, the data which changes regularly every time that you create a document or report is what we call as the transaction data. So here we have examples like document number, document date, the terms and conditions, the quantity, the amount, the payment terms, payment methods. So data like this, which is constantly changing every time that you create a report or a document, is what we call as transaction data. Now, master data, the what type of data has to be maintained for any type of master data is configured or customized by the consultants based on your company process, but the actual data is maintained by the end users. That is, they enter and modify the data as required based on the type of data and based on the different business requirements. Now, whenever SAP is installed at any client place, we need to map the client business process into the SAP application. So this mapping of the client process into the SAP system is most of the time carried out through configuration activities only. Programming is definitely required, but it's only up to 5% of the activities carried out for configuring or for customizing the application as per the client process. Okay. So this is what is the introduction part. So next topic, we're going to talk about the initial screens, how to log in, how to navigate, and all those things. All right.